My name's Kyle Rourke, and I was born here in Los Angeles, California, 1970. My mom is from, and dad are both from Kansas City. My dad's from Kansas City, Kansas, and my mom's from Kansas City, Missouri. My mother's an English teacher, so she has a bachelor's degree, and my dad's a mathematician, so he has a master's degree, and he was an aerospace engineer, and they both just retired. My mom's a Christian Scientist, so that's a Protestant religion that comes from Boston. It's a very small kind of a religious sect, and we grew up reading the King James Version of the Bible, so I grew up going to Sunday school every weekend with my brothers. I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. And my dad is an agnostic and a scientist, so he never went to church with us, so it was just my mom and my two brothers. I'd say we weren't that religious. My mom's very religious, but I'd say my two brothers and I, we kind of rebelled against religion, and we just had a lot of questions that I don't think we found an answer to in the Bibles. We all liked some of the Bible stories. My older brother's a professor who's kind of a Marxist, so he's very left, so he kind of rejected God. And then my younger brother is a construction worker, so he's married and has two kids, so he's starting to look into different religions. I think he's been to the Mormon church, and he's been to a couple other Christian churches. He wants to find some kind of religious background for his family. And I'd say for growing up, from what we learned in church, it was very different from how school was. Like, there was a lot of pressure, mostly just to be a good student, get good grades, and there was a lot of pressures growing up for going out and having fun, drinking, doing drugs and stuff like that. So I think the religious background for a lot of kids that I grew up, we just kind of didn't have the faith to stay on the right track. So most of my friends were agnostic, or nobody really talked about God. We just did what we wanted to do. I think so, and I think a problem with a lot of people, younger people, feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy in church. We watch on TV a lot, the religious leaders always getting in trouble for talking really good in sermons, but then they get arrested for a sin or something. So we saw that a lot on TV. So I think as a young kid that affected a lot of us in religion, where we just lost faith in a lot of the Christian leaders in this country. Everybody that I know really believes that, unless somebody's a very strong Christian. But I think a lot of times we see even the strong Christians still, they kind of lack a faith that they live in their daily life by, how they spend their money, being generous and treating other people kindly. I think there's a problem with the Christian faith in America right now. Mostly good memories. I think my parents were very good people and tried to show me the right ways. I was just never a very good student, so I got in trouble a lot, and I don't think my parents really were able to help me with school, and most of the time I got average to poor grades. The first 10 years of my life, I grew up in La Cañada, and it was pretty much a pure white neighborhood. We didn't have, the only minorities were Asians, so I kind of remember that there was a city right next to me um, that was Pasadena, and they had a lot more. It was pretty much African American, and I remember they were going to integrate the schools, and I remember on TV seeing a lot of white parents yelling at little black kids on the bus, and that had an effect on me. So when I was about third and fourth grade, I went to a private school, and that was a little bit more mixed, where we did have more minorities. So it was the first time I went to school with African American kids. So I felt good being able to make friends with people from outside of my own race. And then we moved from La Cañada down here to Palos Verdes, and the schools up where I grew up are very challenging, and most of the parents have a lot of money and a lot of education, so there's a lot of pressure to study hard, and if you're not good in sports or school, you kind of fall into the wrong group. And I started listening to rock and roll and hanging out with friends, and I grew my hair long, and so that was my lifestyle. I didn't really care about school, and I was looking probably to get out and go into the military was my idea by the time I got into high school. Bad memories in school, I don't have too many. I did go to kind of a special school where you could go to school part-time, and I got into lifting weights. So I started to exercise a lot. So I did get a skill before I joined the military. I learned how to weight lift, and that was the best experience I had. I had a weightlifting teacher that spent a lot of time with me. While I was in high school, a friend of mine joined the Army in 1988, so I went and saw an Army recruiter and then also a United States Marine recruiter. So I decided to join the Marines in 1989, and I went down to San Diego in 1989, and when I got out, the Berlin Wall fell down, and the military invaded Panama. So while I was in my training, I watched all this, and right as I was a new Marine, the first Iraq War broke out with Kuwait, so that had a big effect on me. I was in Japan during the time, but almost everybody I knew went over and had to fight in Kuwait, and I was 20 years old and 21 during the war.
During which war?
The Desert Storm. I was in the military from 1989 to 1999. No, I worked on artillery, so I shot cannons. We're right behind the infantry, so the Marines' job is to be the first to go into battle. So like if we land on a beach, we'll go from the ship.
Japan?
I was in Japan, Hawaii, and Kentucky. And in Kentucky, I was switched over into the Army, and I was in helicopter warfare. So I flew in helicopters and shot cannons again.
What's the meaning of shot cannons? What's that?
A howitzer, it's a big gun that takes about 5 to 7 guys to fire. So you work together as a team, firing like maybe 4 miles away. So you don't see the target. You load a big bomb in the cannon, and you shoot it kind of like a rocket.
Ah, I see, I understand. You don't see the target, but...
Right. They call it indirect fire.
Indirect fire. What was your mission in that?
I was...
What's your duty?
I was the second, like a sergeant. So I had one boss, and then I was in charge of 5 guys. So I had to make sure everybody did their job. I also drove the truck too. So I also worked on the radios.
You worked there for 4 years?
9 years.
9 years you worked. Why you abandoned that job?
I ended up having some trouble, so I left early. I had some trouble drinking.
Oh. Well, if you want to tell, tell. No, if it's not dangerous for you, you tell.
I probably would have gone to the war, but I ended up got in trouble drinking, and they sent me into a program. So I stopped drinking for most of the time into the military, and that was in 1990. And then I started back up in 1997, and I was under kind of a lot of stress with, I had been married a couple times, and I ended up going back to drinking, and I lost my career in the military.
Got it. You said that you married a couple times?
Yes.
Why you don't tell those stories? Story, we need story.
I think it's kind of common for a lot of guys in the military. They, you're away from home, you get lonely, and you meet a girl in town, and it's easy to get married in the military because they can give you a house, and you have enough money to provide for your family, and so then you get married kind of fast, and maybe you don't pick the right girl. So maybe a lot of guys, when they go away, the girls get lonely and stuff, so it's a kind of a problem in the military. There's a lot of divorces in the United States military.
That's the reason that divorce? What's the reason they divorce so easily? Even in this society is so common. Even in America it's so common. Why it's so much? Well, what's the reason that in America the people divorce easily?
I think, you know, a lot of times it has to do with maybe you didn't get married for the right reasons at the beginning, and you didn't spend enough time getting to know your wife or your spouse to see if you had a lot in common or she had a good character. And then I think a lot of times it's infidelity, so one person cheats on the other.
Then this is the reason to divorce.
Yes. And I think also financial pressure too. A lot of times, you know, people, our culture's kind of materialistic right now, so people want things that their friends might have. So then you have to either work really hard, or if you're an honest guy, sometimes it's hard because other people are making their money not honest, so they have a lot of things, but you don't have a lot of things. So
yeah, you mean that because of economic problems, the man divorced his wife? She is not working?
I'd say a lot of times the wife maybe gets mad because, oh, you should have more money. So I think a lot of guys feel a lot of pressure and burden that they don't have, that there's always some guy that's got more money than them.
You mean the lady? The lady pressure to the man?
Yes.
That you don't have money, the other people have too much money?
Yes.
Then the man divorced the lady?
Or the lady divorces the man, gets another boyfriend or something like that.
Ah, boyfriend. I see. Even the husband, when he saw she's with a boyfriend, then divorced, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Or sometimes maybe the man gets into a fight with his wife or hangs out with his friends, and you know, sometimes, a lot of times it's the guy's fault too, where he's making too much money and he's going out and having a girlfriend. I have to go work, I have to go do business and go out and drink and stuff, so I think that for a lot of people, drinking in business it causes a lot of problems where they're not spending time with their family. Drinking, or people say, oh, well, I have to go spend time with my clients. So they go out to a bar and when they should be home with their friends, like maybe trying to network. People do a lot of dinner, drinking, go to the bar, and talk to people for business and stuff. But then it ends up being too much of a party and not business anymore.
How about, I didn't go that detail. Could you repeat it? They go to bar for speaking about business?
Yes.
Then what?
Then they have too many drinks and they don't go home soon enough. After the military, I got out and stayed in Kentucky. I stayed in a small town and worked in a factory for 2 years, working in a steel mill. And I had a wife and a stepdaughter, and then we ended up having some problems with alcohol and drugs, and so she had a drug problem, so I had to get a divorce, and I came back home and started a new life here in Los Angeles about the time when 9/11 happened. So I went to school for 2 years, and that's when I first made my first Muslim friends in college. I'd say probably going to Sunday school, we talked about different religions. So I never really heard too much about Islam, except my mother said, Islam's a religion that was spread by the sword, and kind of people became Muslim because they had a choice, either convert or die. But besides that, I had a pretty neutral, I didn't dislike Islam, or I didn't know any Muslims. I just saw growing up a lot of the stuff on TV about the problems in the Middle East, and some in the 1980s when I was a kid, it was pretty much the United States was having trouble with the Shiite extremists. So that's my first real kind of education of Islam, but I didn't let that make me prejudiced. And then during my time in the military, I met a couple Muslim people, and so I still had a positive experience. And what I'd always heard was that, like, when Osama bin Laden came around, he was an extremist, and so I remember I was in college during 9/11, and I kind of worried about some of my Muslim friends, so I ended up telling them if they ever were scared or if anybody gave them a hard time, just they could come talk to me. So I built a good relationship with some Muslim people, and they told me, a lot of the problems in the United States is a bad kind of the media distorts Islam. And this one guy from Saudi Arabia told me that in Saudi Arabia it's a crime to curse God and to curse Jesus Christ. And he said, I hear a lot of Christians use bad language towards their own God and towards Jesus. And I thought about that, and I didn't know that, even Jesus was a highly regarded prophet. So that was a really one of my first things where I started looking into Islam. I had bought a Quran and I read it a few times, and I'd say I've been baptized a couple times in different churches, so I looked around at different religions, but I had like I said, some problems with drinking and drugs over the years, and I'd always tried to do the right thing, but I get involved with the wrong people, or when I was doing the right thing, I'd be kind of depressed. So I started looking into Islam, and I talked to a couple people, and they gave me another Quran, and I actually came down to this masjid 2 years ago, and a guy talked to me about Islam, said, you know, if I become a Muslim, I'll have a very strong faith. And I looked at my life and where I wanted to go, and Islam seemed to have a lot of the answers that I was looking for. Well, I was going to talk to my family, and first I talked to my girlfriend at the time, and she said she said she couldn't marry or go out with a Muslim, so I ended up converting without telling her. So I just felt like I had to, in my heart, I had to convert to Islam, or I was gonna go further down the wrong path. And I guess in my Christian life, we talk about like God talks to us. So it was like Allah was telling me, you know, this is a chance where, you know, I can repent for my life, and you know, if I convert, I can live a better life. And I didn't really know too much, but I just had that feeling that this is something that I have to do. And I came to the masjid and told one of my friends, I want to become a Muslim, and he said, well, do you know all the things, the 5 pillars? And he went over them again, and I said, yes, I know, I've read them, I need to do this now. So it was Juma, so I came in for the Juma, and it was a really good Juma, and it was like the guy who was leading the Juma was answering a lot of my questions. And so then after Juma, I ended up doing the Shahada. And in my mind, I was the only Caucasian European brother in there, so I felt like, are these people gonna like me and accept me? But like I said, I just felt like it was something I had to do. And afterwards, the whole, everybody came up and gave me a hug, and it made me feel very welcome, and I felt like a peace came onto my heart. And I'd say it's been challenging to try to learn Islam as a way of life, like trying to, where, you know, as a Christian, we would pray anywhere, we'd talk to God anyway, we'd read the Bible. Some days we might read one translation, or we might read another, but you know, everything's so specific. We do 5 prayers, and it's very different from the life that I'm used to living. 2001 is when I first heard somebody say that the Muslims believe in Jesus too. So I didn't know that before. And so I thought about that for 2010's when I finally decided that I wanted to be a Muslim.
How long it takes to study Islam?
So then I studied for about I studied for a year before I did my Shahada. So I bought some books and I read on my own.
You bought the books. Did you bought Quran, and did you read Quran that time?
I read about a third of the Quran, and I bought a book about the kind of the basics of Islam that went over the 5 pillars, and I read some pamphlets too that people gave me here.
But how you know, it's speaking revelation, something revelation, because you are coming from some lives and some another religion you participate, how it was in that period to decide to go, and what you were feeling that time?
Um, I'd say it was mostly some of the troubles that I was going through that forced me, and I looked at that my Christian faith didn't save me, and Islam made a lot more sense because I never believed in like the Catholics believe in the Trinity, and that didn't make any sense to me. And then the Christians, some of the Protestants believe that Jesus is God, and you have to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, or you're going to hell. So that didn't make any sense to me. And I'd ask questions sometimes, and people seemed to get kind of like they didn't have a good answer for those things. And my mom always taught me that there's one God, and then Jesus Christ was she didn't say he was God or anything. She said he was a holy person. So Islam kind of made a little bit more sense to me, and I felt I had to do something because I was going down the wrong path. And there's a lot of appealing things about Islam. No drinking, the 10 Commandments, basically the same. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. You're not living a material lifestyle. You're trying to think about what God wants you to do. And the Muslims that I knew were living a much more moral life than I met some very moral Christians, but I had tried it for myself and failed. So I saw a lot more appealing in Islam for me.
So after becoming a Muslim, all your opinion about Muslims and Islam has changed, I think.
100%. I found that everybody's kind of different. A lot of Muslims explained it to me. You have a lot of people from different parts of the Muslim world, so they all have their culture, but everybody, the main thing is the Quran and the Sunnah, and that's what kind of unites the Muslims. But most of the brothers that I've met are very kind and helpful, and that's been, because as they say, I'm a baby, I don't know anything, so I'm very dependent on people teaching me the right way. And I've pretty much stuck with just trying to learn the Al-Fatiha and learning a little bit about the Quran. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa tabala kazmuka wa ta'ala jaduka bilahi
Ve la ilahe gayruk.
bilahi
Ve la ilahe gayruk.
wala ilaha gairuk a'udu billahi mina shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahman Ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahir Rabbi Alamin. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka nabudu wa iyaka nasta'in. Idina silatal idinas mustaqim. Silatal ladina an'amta alamin. Gairu makdubi alamin. Wala dalin. I've gotten a negative attitude from almost everybody. So I think it's one of the scholars came, an Islamic scholar came and gave a class on dawah, and he said right now there's a statistic that says 70% of Americans have a negative view of Islam because of the media. And I found that right before I became a Muslim and then afterwards, I started running into a lot of people that were saying a lot of negative things about Islam. So I felt at times I never told anybody that I was a Muslim because some people I do business with, so wasn't in a position to lose the business. But I tried to say positive things about Islam and defend Muslims, or at least most of the things that they were saying just were not true. It was something that they'd read or a friend told them or they saw on TV. So I always tried to give a more positive view to my fellow Americans about my faith. But I just didn't feel like I was strong enough to tell people, you know, I'm a Muslim and my religion's a very beautiful religion and has changed my life. And that's why I'm studying with the Imam right now, so maybe I can help people to see Islam in a better light in this country.
So every day you are coming here to study Islam?
Yes.
What do you study? What do you do here? Because we don't know here.
So I try to make my 5 prayers a day. So I come to the mosque. One of the brothers said, go to the mosque at least once a day. So he told me that that's kind of, he gave that as like my goal right now, being a new Muslim, to come once a day. So I've learned how to do the wudu and then to say the prayer the best I can. And they said just one little piece at a time. Don't try to be too extreme, because a lot of new Muslims, after they do Shahada, they get really eager and then they get discouraged and they disappear. So I've just been trying to make this part of my life and make good relationships with some of the other brothers. When I got out of the military, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I had been divorced twice and didn't really want to sit behind a desk. And one of my best skills in the military was exercise. I had won some awards. So the exercise business was growing here in Los Angeles. So I got a job at one of the local gyms, and I always liked helping people. So the business in the gyms has a lot of haram in it, where you try to give people the highest price and then negotiate down. And I didn't like that. I like just, here, I'm going to give you this for this price. So I ended up going out and doing my own business. So I go to people's house, and most of the people I work with are probably 40 to 60 years old, professionals, and they don't know anything about exercise. So I have to teach them how to eat better and how to exercise correctly.
The martial arts, did you teaching them?
Some people I do teach martial arts. I've studied martial arts for about 10 years, and a lot of different exercise styles.
Excuse me, I didn't understand. You said that 10 years you study
Martial arts,
What
yes.
did you study? You didn't? Oh.
I've studied Korean Hapkido. I have a black belt in Hapkido, and I've studied Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's more of like a wrestling, grappling martial art. And I've also studied Filipino martial arts, sticks and knives. So
You are very experienced for the martial arts. You said that 10 years you study. Where in LA?
LA is probably one of the best places to learn martial arts in the world. There's a few of the guys, masters, studied with Bruce Lee, and then some of the best Brazilian martial artists are here in Los Angeles, the Gracie brothers. And I think because of the movies too, Hollywood, a lot of martial arts schools are almost on every street corner.
No, but I asked that where did you learn? In those people?
Yes,
Who,
here in Los Angeles.
who was your master? Your master is the master of Bruce Lee? No.
One of my masters trained with Bruce Lee. His name's Danny Inosanto. He's kind of a famous guy. He does a seminar once a year, and people come from all around the world to train with him for 4 days. Then there's another master that I studied with. He's a Korean master named Master Kwan. His partner was in some movies. And then the Machado brothers, I've studied with them, and they trained Chuck Norris, who's kind of a famous martial artist. He had a TV show, Texas Ranger.
Your masters were something famous. I mean, important people.
So yeah, some of them have. Most people, probably some people in Turkey would know some of the names that are, if they're into martial arts.
Yeah, well, we know only usually look for Bruce Lee.
Right.
Chuck Norris also is some of the movies he's making some martial arts. I don't know with the style. What's his style?
He did Tong Sudo, which is a Korean form of karate, and then he started learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So Chuck Norris has a really good kicking martial art, but he also studied grappling too.
Your master was his teacher, or?
Yes, the Brazilian brothers, they call them the Machado brothers. They trained Chuck Norris and were on one of his TV shows.
Also, you learned from this man, huh?
Yes.
So you said red belt from one of them, or?
Yeah, I
Excuse me, not red, black belt.
black belt.
3 of them you have black belt, or no?
I have one black belt and a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So black belts in Korean Hapkido. And nowadays, it's very kind of, it sounds like, oh, wow, that's a lot, but there's mixed martial arts is very common, so people like to cross-train and learn weapons. They like to learn kicking and punching, and also like grappling and judo style.
And when you make your worship, what do you feel? What's the meaning of those things for you, spiritually?
I think most important is a discipline, like trying to change my life and get onto a regular routine, so I can know what the path God wants me on. And when I do my salat, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. Right now, it's just I'm concentrating mostly on trying to say the words correctly, because coming from a Christian background, we have so many different Christianities and different ways to pray that it makes a lot of sense to me to pray one way using Arabic and trying to master your 5 prayers a day. I'm a big believer that that's the right way, and I also try to think about what the El-Fatiha means and the different phrases at the different parts of the Salat. So I try to think about that and concentrate during my, I guess it's a way to get out of the busy lifestyle here in Los Angeles. When I pray, it's kind of like, as a exercise coach, it's like I'm exercising spiritually and also eating at the same time, like I'm getting my spiritual nutrition from Allah. And some of the brothers have told me, I've come and I'm always under a lot of stress learning how to change and become a Muslim, but they said, Islam's very simple. Just come here and talk to your Allah. And another thing, I think it's helpful for me because, I don't have to go to a priest. I don't have to go to a minister. you know, Allah knows my heart when I'm doing my salat. So, you know, I do feel a connection, and the mosque has become a very special place for me.
Yeah, good, good. And what about Ramadan? Well, how did you live Ramadan?
This is going to be my first Ramadan.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Well, being former Protestant, it makes a lot of sense because Islam's a great religion for kind of bringing everybody together because Muhammad's the last prophet. So I think Islam could unite a lot of people, and like it's the religion of peace. So that appeals to me. That you know, I believe it's the religion that has the ability to give people what they're really looking for in life, not material things, because people have all this money and they're not happy. And then on the other hand, you know, if you're a selfish person, you're not very nice. So if you have a lot of stuff, you could give it to somebody else and you'll feel better. So I think that a lot of things about life, Islam has the answer. And, you know, giving to the poor is, I think, one of the most beautiful things. I talked to an imam, and he said, you know, there's really no extremism in Islam. You know, we go out every Friday and we feed non-Muslims, even though they're not Muslims. We give give food to the homeless people, and whether they're Muslims or not, because they're human beings. And you know, in my growing up, we always just kind of focused on taking care of our little group and not just somebody because they're a human being.
Yeah. So can you compare the both cultures, West and East culture?
You know, my first experience with people from the East is pretty much Asians, like Chinese and Koreans. And I'd say, in my impression, I notice a lot of similarities from Middle Eastern, South Asian, and East Asian people, where they have more of like a discipline and kind of a community-based culture, and a respect for elders, where, especially in America, we have more of an individual culture. And I'd say, you know, my impression is, I think in America we don't know enough about other cultures, and sometimes, like if we go to a country, we're just so used to being Americans, we might not show a lot of respect to people, and then we love our freedom so much we want to tell everybody about freedom, and sometimes there's a lot of bad things about freedom, but I'd say I think a lot of people in the East don't always see the good thing about Americans. Maybe they just see like all of our negative stuff about, you know, our materialistic culture, and they don't see, you know, I think Americans are really kind people, and you know, we have a kind of a culture because we had to come across the United States, so you know, most people kind of believed you had to do everything by yourself.
How about the spreading of Islam? Which kind of ways do you advise to the Muslims to spread Islam to?
Some of the ways that I think have been the internet is really helping a lot, because it's kind of a non-threatening way where you can get the information without, especially here in America, we've felt like we've been preached to so much, and what we've been told isn't the we end up seeing what people say is not really their actions. So I think the internet would be really helpful because you can read the information, you can go to an Islamic website or Facebook, and you can hear the exact opposite than what you'll see on the TV news. So I think the internet's helpful. Also, maybe the Muslims could reach out more to, mostly in America, get to know more Americans. There's a lot of opportunity with especially the financial problems. People are questioning the material lifestyle, and there's a big opportunity to give people some faith. And there's a lot of problems that Islam could help out by. A lot of Americans have problems with eating too much food, drinking, not being happy, divorce. So, if somebody could come up with a good way to show a solution without feeling like the person's being judged, I think that's a great way to spread Islam. Spreading it as an answer to problems.
What's the way? Yeah, internet is one way.
I
don't know what.
Well, brother said that how he was telling me how Islam got spread to Indonesia was the people were so impressed by the way that Muslims did business. They weren't cheated, and they were treated very kindly by the Muslims, and they were consistent. They were always, so it wasn't what they said, but it was the interaction and the kindness and the fairness in the way the Muslims did business, and the way they lived their life was appealing. So I think that's one way. And maybe, with some of the new converts in America, maybe teaming up with, a very knowledgeable person in Islam, and going out and talking to people, sharing the faith. But probably the most important is like doing the fair business and being honest. And when I was thinking about converting, it was like I kind of had a feeling that Islam would spread in this country if the right word got out, that because people are kind of poor in spirit and they're hungry, that and I think a lot of people they kind of think that the media is not being truthful and about how much like they got away with brainwashing us and we didn't even know it, because before 9/11, I'd say people probably most people probably had a neutral to favorable view of Islam. I don't think, unless you came from a very strict Christian family who's prejudiced, I think some way that the media is kind of working against themselves. I think more people maybe getting some more shows out there, like showing, probably showing how people's lives change from Islam. That would be the best, like a reality show. Not something phony, but like showing somebody how their life was before Islam, what they thought, what made them change, and then their life after Islam. I'd just like to thank them for being the people that have kind of kept kept hold of the light for us here in America. So if it wasn't for all the people keeping the hold of their faith through the challenges, we wouldn't have the opportunity to become Muslims here in America. So I'd just like to inspire all the brothers and sisters in Turkey to think about us here in America and pray for us. And I hope that we can find more ways to communicate and to grow stronger together.